raise up your hand if you can hear me. Good. You know, we are already late. So whether we like it or not, tumechelewa. So let's just sit, take time, listen, and not be in a hurry. Because even if we left now, where are you going? There's traffic. Yeah? And so this is, I think this is the best time to be here. Isn't it? Yeah, so I'll start by introducing myself. My name's Nixon Nyadiero Seko. I call myself the specialist because I've specialized in establishing and building strategic relationships and partnerships. So that's what I talk about. I am a 23-year-old veteran of the NGO sector. So I've overseen the transition of the NGO sector through 3 different regimes. I've seen the NGO sector rise, the NGO sector fall. Then I got a time where I got tired of working with government. I decided to switch and go to private sector. And therefore in private sector I work at Equity Bank. And at Equity Bank I'm head of NGOs and embassies. And therefore I'm here today combining the experience of NGOs, government, and private sector as far as education is concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the brief introduction. Okay, please you can stay with it. Madam Njiru, by the way, apologies if I don't pronounce your names well. Please, apologies. Some of us are from different ethnicity. So it's Madam Njiru Mbugwa, right? Okay, please, you can introduce yourself.
Okay, good evening. Yeah, my name is Wanjiru. I'm a development practitioner with keen interest in public policies and policy processes. I'm in the development space, specifically in inclusive education as a policy advocacy officer and working with both government and non-state actors. You know, that nexus between the non-governmental organizations and the government and the space for policy influencing. So for me, what going to be discussing is really what is the role of public-private partnerships and what do we mean when you talk about that ecosystem thinking and what in practice do we need to do in the NGO space as we work with the government. So I've been in this space working with the government, working with the NGOs, and I'm hoping that through our discussions here we're going to really see what we can do in terms of transforming education. I'm a believer that transformative education or transforming education in this day and age and specifically in the 21st century has to appreciate the dynamism of education. It has to appreciate that we are living in a changing world. We've heard about the tech spaces, we've heard about people talking of disrupting the space. So mine is to see how we can disrupt that, both in the state and non-state spaces.
We are ready for the disruption. Okay, we are honored to have Dr. Alice Kibui. Please, Dr. Alice, you can introduce yourself kindly.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alice Kibui. First, I'm a teacher by profession. I've been in class for more than 10 years before I joined the development world. I work for SOS. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I didn't realize it wasn't talking, but being a teacher, my voice is well projected. So I said I'm Alice Kibwe. I am a teacher by profession. I have taught in high school for more than 10 years before I joined the NGO world. I am a strong believer in what we are discussing today, that is transforming education. And today I am here to just look at the modalities that we can put in place to have our education in Kenya meet the international standards. At SOS Student Villages Kenya, I am in charge of education programming, where we start program education from early years, that is ECD, up until the university. We support children, vulnerable children, especially specifically orphans, those who have lost parental care or those who are at the verge of losing parental care, to access the to access education and all the other essential services. Thank you. We'll talk more.
Thank you so much, Daktari. Last but not least, we have Miss Elena Wangoi. Please, you can introduce yourself kindly.
Thank you very much. Hamjambo. My name is Elena, as he has indicated, from World Vision. World Vision is a relief, and first is a Christian international organization. And we focus so much on supporting communities and families to ensure that they have improved and sustained well-being. And we are working with the marginalized community, the poor and the oppressed, and we target the most vulnerable communities to ensure that their families, the children, and the community are supported to get to that level whereby they are able to realize the unconditional love of God, to ensure that children have fulfillment in life. So World Vision, we have been working in the country for more than 40 years, where we do programming activities which are aligned to the sustainable development goal. So as an organization, we are so much focused on education to ensure that children are educated for life. That is one of our aspirations as an organization, to ensure that children are educated for life. Therefore, we have projects and activities that focused to the well-being of children, right from the 0 years to up to early childhood level, which ends at 9 years or 8 years there. Therefore, we want to ensure that we are developing a child holistically. Therefore, we'll be talking more about what we are doing as an organization to support the transformation, transforming education, to ensure that our children have not only skills and values, skills and knowledge, but they are also well prepared with the right skills, with also they are able to manage their relationships. They are able to do good decision making skills. They are able to innovate, to ensure that as they prepare to the world, they are able to handle all the challenges that come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, the speakers, for that powerful introduction. Now we go on to our second session of discussing more on the highlighted aspect here is quality education. So what you're supposed to listen here is, how are you going to improve the quality of education through the non-governmental organizations? There are more than 10,000 non-governmental organizations in Kenya. Obviously, there are others having good motives, others having bad motives. You know what I mean. Now, Mr. Nixon, you are the head of NGOs and the embassies in Kenya. Can you share with us the mandate the NGO body provide in terms of quality education and international education standards?
Thank you very much. I think let's start by the statistics of the contribution of NGOs to national development. I think according to the NGO sector report 2021-2022, NGOs contributed a total of 136 billion towards the Kenyan economy. On this amount, what was spent on projects is 108 billion. Of the 108 billion, 10.1 billion was spent on education. So the amount that was spent on education far much exceeds the total budget for some of the counties that we have in the country. But it's also important to note that apart from education only, there is also the sector that is called children education. Children. So children again catered for, the NGO spend about 10.1 billion shillings on children. It's also important at this particular point to just note, because I'm very happy that SOS and World Vision are here, that World Vision in that period spent 5.4 billion. Compassion International 5.2. Child Fund 1.9. Plan 1.7. Danish Refugee Council 1.7. Save the Children 1 billion. Windle Trust 882 million. I'm trying to get SOS since they are here. SOS muko na bahati siwaoni hapa. Yeah. But that just what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that a lot of money has been pumped into the NGO sector, into education through the NGO sector. Yeah? And the question we ask ourselves then, what is the impact? Do we see any impact? And the answer is divided into two. Is both yes and no. Because the mode of education that NGOs support is sponsorship. Yeah, that's what World Vision does. That's what Plan does with a lot of girls, and SOS Children's Home handles both. So you find that what an NGO does is it educates a child from primary to secondary, and a number of them also now go to university. Then that now begs the question, what next? And I'll not attempt to answer that. I'll leave that to the specialists. But a few days ago, there was a furor in Kenya. When, during the graduation ceremony at JKU Art, the deputy president said that there are no jobs. And this forum has actually vindicated him and agreed with him. Because the forum has said that in the next few years, I think that the 34%, a very large, I can't just remember the chunk, but a large number of jobs will be taken up by AI. Okay? So that means jobs will not be there. So then what does that imply? It implies that our education system must transform and be be disrupted to train people not for jobs but for work. So now there's a difference. Let me explain the difference between a job and work. A job is what you are paid to do. Work is what pays you. So work is more about passion. And work is something that no one has to tell you to do it. Now, when we look at the current education system that we have with the 844, in my opinion, it is a system that is built towards the students being employees. Okay? The CBC has made very serious attempts to ensure that there is a shift from employees to work. Okay? And that's where now, as far as education is concerned, then talent comes in and passion. And I really love what you said, you know, when you said in your dealing with children with special needs, is that once you identify a talent, then it is very important that that talent is done what? Is nurtured. I'll give an example. There is a lady, an 11-year-old girl in Kenya who resides in Mombasa. She's called Shanarina Evans. Shanarina Evans will be launching her album at the end of the month. She's 11 years old. But she also goes to school. Yeah? So she never misses school because she's a star musician. Another example that I always like giving is there's a guy called Benihin Walubengo. Benihin Walubengo is an orator and a public speaker and a trainer. He is 21 years old. He's a second-year-old student at Catholic, at Daystar University. Yeah? So during his free time, he's busy training people and also through that making money. So he's training, empowering people for work. But at the same time, he is going to school. So what is it? And I'll also like to give some statistics about the sporting industry in Kenya, in the world, because sports plays a very important role in the life of a child. Yeah? Because there are certain ages, what the children do is play. Yeah? And sports is a 600 billion, not million, $1 billion industry annually in the world. So then that begs the question, for us as Kenyans, have we tapped in and taken full advantage of that industry? The answer is no. We are seeing attempts, there are serious attempts now by athletes who have always lifted up the name of our country. But the other sports, rugby is going down, football is going down, basketball is going down, cricket is going down. So then where are we in terms of sports talent? Again, that's a question that, Daniel, you will have to organize another meeting with sports tutors to see where we can go. The other day, I was in a workshop on Tuesday, where we were discussing the role of artificial intelligence in resource mobilization. And ladies and gentlemen, it blew my mind that nowadays, a machine can help you write a project proposal. A machine can get you a list of donors. A machine can help you write an email. There were students there who stated that through AI now they finish their assignments very, very quickly. You remember for those people who have done research, how long did research take you? It took you months. But nowadays through AI, it takes you minutes. And you have a whole research project. So then that begs, are we then as a country steering in the right direction as far as AI is concerned? Then the answer is no. Number two, are we as a country looking at AI as a threat or AI as an advantage? And it's very unfortunate that for now, we are looking at AI as a threat. Yet, AI, for anyone here who knows how to use AI, you will never be broke. For sure. I look at Vera, the college, and I've attended a lot of functions that have been sponsored by Vera. And I know a lot of girls, I grew up in Mathare. So there are a lot of girls who I know who have gone through your college. They're exceptional women today. But they had been told that they cannot make it in life just because they were unable to go to education. So then that takes us to the next stage. So then we have education is divided into two. According to SECO, there is formal education, which you go to school to learn. And there is formal education, which you can learn in tertiary schools, or the world can teach you. And therefore, going forward as a country and as educators, the most important thing is we should know education is not an end. Education is a means to an end. I'll give a story as I try. I'll conclude. I'm a board member at Kenya Red Cross, Nairobi branch. And I work a lot with young people. So I'll give two stories. So I was sharing my experiences with about 100 young people. And there was a young man who was seated where Daniel is seated. And that young man was looking at me so intently that I actually got scared. So after the talk, he came to me and held me and told me, Seko, were it not for your talk today, I was going to commit suicide. So then that caught my attention. They asked him, why would you commit suicide? He told me he is a graduate of Technical University. For 4 years, he has been jobless. He has a wife and he has 2 kids. And it has reached a point where he does not know what to do. So in the process of counseling, I asked him, what is your passion? What do you do? Oh, he told me football. He told me many things. But I asked him, what do you really enjoy? And he told me he's a painter. And I asked him, can I just, do you have photos? And he showed me. He showed me about 35 excellent photos. For me, I love lions and I love Paul Kagame. So he had portraits of the two on his phone. So I asked him, how much are these? He told me 2,500. So on the spot, I sent him 5,000. Then I remember I have a friend who's an art lover, Peter. So I told Peter, there's this guy I've met. He has things that I think you need to look at. And Peter told me, okay, I'm busy, Seko, I'm busy. Today is Saturday, I want to watch football. So be very quick with it. That boy sent. 2 minutes did not pass. Achayo moved from a place where there was a lot of noise to a place that was very quiet. And he asked me, who is this? And I told him, I don't know him. I've just met him a few minutes ago. He told me he selected 10 photos and he told me he wants to buy them. So I told him, ngoja niongee na huyu kijana, nijue bei. So I told him, ni 2,500. Huyu Achayo hatutamuuzia hiyo bei. Tutamuuzia 3,000. So again, in 5 minutes, Achayo sent this guy 30,000. So in 15 minutes, this guy, out of what he loves, he made 35,000. But it didn't end there. My friend decided to take him under his wing. And that was in November last year. To date, the guy makes a minimum of 120,000 shillings a month. Minimum. Every month. He has moved into a better house. He has bought land where he intends to construct his house. Aliniambia hata kama ni nyumba ya mabati, bora hapo ni kwangu, nisilipe rent. His children are going to school. The wife is happy. And he has taken 2 young boys under his wing so that he also trains them, because painting is their passion. From grass to grace. His car is his star. So then how can we, as I conclude, this is the final conclusion, how do we then turn scars into stars? Then that's the question that I will leave all of you with today. But let's know and let's be aware of the fact that there are no jobs in this country. We have work. And we should train our young people to work. And the last 2 batches or 2 groups that have been here of young men who are doing who are doing things through solutions through IT is an example that your passion is your source of money. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Nixon, for that powerful presentation in terms of the mandates the NGO can actually provide. And through your discussion, I can summarize on aspects concerning the NGO deals mostly with sponsorship in terms of education, and they make sure through the sponsorship all the resources and all the finances are being channeled down well so that quality education can be enhanced. And also, NGOs assist in nurturing of potentials. I hope you'll get more and more of other artists. I think I can even draw. Okay, I can't even hold my pen. On to Madam Kibui. There is what we call the institutional inclusivity. We have talked about the inclusivity in terms of the learner-centered aspect, the previous panels. But because you're talking about an NGO and NGO are institutions, you as the Kesho Kesho Kenya, who have done a lot of projects. How are these institutional inclusivity in terms of NGOs, the civic societies, the government, mostly the Ministry of Education, because you're talking about quality of education. How have you actually work together so that you can achieve a conducive and a positive educational outcome in Kenya and maybe even outside Kenya?
Okay, thank you for your question, and I'd like to pick it up from where he left. He did mention about the NGO space and issues of funding, and one thing he mentioned is that the education sector has gotten 10 billion, no, a whole 10 billion, and he went ahead to say the allocation to World Vision, the allocation to these other organizations, and from what he said is that sponsorship has been that key take in terms of these funds. But I want to introduce an interesting twist to this, because for the longest time ever in Kenya and across the globe, the NGO space has been known to be there to work to provide direct services. But there is an interesting shift. There is a pot that is simmering in the NGO space, and linking it to your question is that we are moving away from direct services. We are moving away from providing sponsorships, because we are realizing that you can only do so much in terms of providing this sponsorship. And with this, I want to talk about the work we've been doing at Kesho Kenya. Founded in the year 2004, Kesho Kenya has been working in the coast region primarily to address issues of education and lack of opportunities for employment for young vulnerable people working or coming from the coastal counties, specifically in Kilifi. And it's interesting that most of the NGOs, when they're looking or scouting for where to work, you'll always find that element of, we want to work in Kilifi. Kilifi is known to be marginalized. Kilifi has high illiteracy levels. Kilifi has high poverty levels. And so with this and with the work that we're doing at Kesho Kenya, providing sponsorship is one of the components of our work. And it is something that we have been able to provide opportunities for education and employment for over 7,000 learners. And so coming to the discussion that I want to introduce around what is changing in the NGO space is that there is now a shift towards policy processes and the NGO or the civil society involvement in policy processes. So we are shifting from the direct services. It's a contentious issue, because there are still organizations that would want to remain in the direct service provision, and my colleagues here would attest to this. And so with this, we are realizing that there is that rising need for the civil society to influence policy processes and work with the government in collaboration. So Kesho Kenya has been working as a local partner through that is working through an alliance in Kenya, Malawi, and Tanzania that is funded by the Global Partnership for Education, that is GPE, promoting social accountability in education and in policy processes, specifically in inclusive education policies. So here we are seeing a shift in the mandate of the non-governmental organizations, where beyond providing direct services and sponsorships and livelihoods promotion, we are seeing the civil society asserting itself, the NGOs taking center stage and being proactive in policy processes, working with the government, so collaborating in evidence-driven initiatives, agenda setting. Specifically, we are talking about, in the education space, a shift now. We are moving from the National Education Strategic Plan for 2018 to 2022. So now we are setting the agenda for the next 4 years of education sector plans. So the civil society has a key role to play, and Kesho Kenya has been part of this, working with the Ministry of Education to promote inclusive education policies, where collaboration in even evidence generation. So when you're talking about data, and from the panelists that we had earlier today, the data issue has always been there. So there is a role that non-governmental organizations have to play to ensure that we are getting to amplify those voices from the community, because non-governmental organizations are at that nexus between communities and the government. You know, they are at that critical place where they are working with both parties. I like to use this as an example because from how I work, or based on what I do in the policy spaces, I get to interact with community members. The Pamodzi for Inclusive Education project is it's working to address issues of the disconnect between policies and their implementation frameworks. So we have a community-driven economic and social rationale for investing in education, where we have community members being at the forefront of championing inclusive education. On the other hand, we have the policy processes working with the state actors, that is the government. So we have engagements with the Ministry of Education, and we are looking at how can we complement and support the government to deliver on policies. So, you know, when you're in the NGO space, you are hearing from both ends, and so you are a facilitator. You know, you have an advantage. You are at a vantage point to provide insights and discourse or shape the agenda of education, because you're hearing from the community and you're also engaging with the duty bearers. And with this, like I mentioned, we are adopting a human rights-based approach in our work, where we want the community to be empowered, to know that they can claim their rights. And then on the other hand, as we engage the duty bearers, the policy makers, you know, we want them to meet their obligations. So really, as the NGO, our collaborations in agenda setting, shaping the discourse of education is key. Collaboration in generating evidence, and also that adoption of the human rights-based approach, and making sure it is working for the communities to meet the needs of the community. Thank you.
How I wish you were my history teacher. You know how she elaborates. I'm very sure each and every person has understood completely how institutional inclusivity can really play a very big vital goal in terms of quality education. Through her explanation, I can deduce that you've talked about partnership. In any NGO, in terms of quality education, you cannot move forward alone. You're supposed to partner with each and every institution. So this is a message to all the NGOs who are around here. You people, majority of us have the same goals that we are pursuing. So we are supposed to pivot one another, not breaking. We should make one another. So partnership, it's a very good initiative you're doing. Second thing is we are moving. Hiyo haibambi. We are moving away from direct services nowadays. We are only talking about policy formulation and policy processes involvement. That is a very good initiative, and we hope it's going to be picked up very well with our Kenyan government. And last from her discussion is it's all about community-driven initiative. Okay, they're not personal-driven initiative. So, Madam Wanjiru, right? Madam Wanjiru, thank you so much for that. Let me go to our Daktari. Being an educator, being a manager, you've come across different kind of people, administrators, managers, teachers, students, which are the most important body in terms of education and how it's supposed to be perceived. Now, where there is like the learners who are at the bottom of the education pyramid, can you please or humbly discuss or share to the panel and the people here on the modalities we should put in place so that we can ensure we offer competitive education to international standards, not national standards, because we have seen through the cognitive aspect of the Kenyan system of education, the KCPE, you're mostly in KCPE, or do you have high schools? like SOS, it's only the primary and nursery, right? Okay, we have seen you shining in KCPE and KCSE. So how can you, or maybe can you tell us on aspects concerning the, sorry, how can we offer competitive education to match the international standards?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. For one, I want to acknowledge the fact that the education system, for it to be competitive, there are three things I would be looking at. I'll be looking at relevance, I'll be looking at quality, and I'll be also looking at equity and inclusion. Today we've had a lot of information about inclusive education. And we need to ask ourselves, do we have, for example, are we practicing inclusive education in Kenya? Is there equity in the provision of education in Kenya? What does it mean to have education that is relevant? What does it mean to have education that is equitable and inclusive? With that, I want to acknowledge the fact that our curriculum is well researched, it is well benchmarked, and even as we talk about CBC, a well-researched and benchmarked curriculum. But looking at the three things that I've talked about, relevance, equity, and inclusivity, are we there yet? And the answer is no, we are not there yet. So what are some of we also want to maybe acknowledge the fact that the government of Kenya has invested a lot, on improving the quality of education, and in terms of even the new curriculum, they're investing a lot. And maybe for us who are here, the stakeholders, the big question is, how are we supporting the government in this? And we, she's talked about partnering with the government, trying to help to support the government in terms of improving this quality education. I'll be looking at some of these modalities that we need to put in place. One, we know that in as much as we want, in as much as the government wants to give quality education that we are calling the international standards, one, we have insufficient resources, and that one is a fact. The resources are insufficient. So somebody talked this morning and said, education is an equalizer. And I was seated there and I was thinking, yes, education is an equalizer, yes. But looking at what we have, has it really equalized our learners? If you look at regional disparities in terms of even the resources that we have, if we look at the resources that are, even the distribution of those resources, right from the human resources, the distribution of teachers, we have, if you compare the urban and the rural areas, do we have the same distribution? Most of us teachers would want to come to the urban areas, and you find that the marginalized communities, the rural areas, actually don't even have enough teachers, in as much as we are talking about that the teachers are not enough in all our schools. So we have insufficient resources in terms of even the human resources, in terms of the instructional resources that are used in our institutions. If you look at even our TVET institutions, do we have the modern, for example, instructional materials that we need? An engineering student at the university would go and get maybe an engine to work with. That is, look at our universities, the materials that they're using. Out there, we find that the world has already moved. They have new technology. We've heard a lot about technology here. So are we up to date? So we need to acknowledge that we have insufficient resources, and we need to pull up our resources in order to provide the education that is up to the international standards. The other bit is that my colleague here has talked about policies, has talked about influencing policies. In the NGO world, we are really working with the government to influence policies, advocacy, to shout on the policies that we have. But we need to address the gap between the policies that we have and policy implementation. We have a lot of policies in Kenya, a lot of policies in education. What about implementation? the policies, we use a lot of resources in coming up with those resources, but we need to address the gaps between implementation and the policies that we have. If only we could just implement what we have as policies, then we could have our education to the international standards. As a stakeholder in the education sector, we also want to acknowledge that we also need to support. We also need to pool our resources. The moderator has rightly put it that as NGOs, as players in this sector, we need to pool our resources together. We are doing so much, but we are doing it in silos. NGOs, Plan is here, World Vision is here, all the other big NGOs are here, but have we come together as NGOs to look at what resources do we have and how do we direct these resources to the right direction so that we can pull together, not duplicate efforts, but to supplement the government's effort in terms of resources.
And mental development, like as a long-term, as a long-term researcher, you have been, and a member of education profession bodies and parents association and children association. Can you please tell us what are some of the latest innovation or innovative teaching approaches? Let me even expound more. Teaching and learning approaches that we can embrace in order we grow holistic children, holistic learners, and even if you can touch the teacher aspect. Yeah. I hope you've understood the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that World Vision has been in this space, investing a lot in terms of transformative development activities. And just before I get to your question, I want to say that apart from sponsorship, we also mobilize resources to support activities that are related to health, and also child protection and participation. We do a lot of activities on that, advocacy, and also issues of economic empowerment, sanitation and hygiene, and also trying to support the communities to ensure that they have food at home, so that even as they take care of their families, they are able to support them. Just coming to your question, some of the innovative approaches that would support learning, and especially to the holistic development of children, we need to be very strategic, because early childhood, it is the foundation level. It is the foundation for every human being. And whatever skills and knowledge they acquire during that age, they form the foundation for future learning. So whatever skills they get, they are lifelong learning. So as an organization, we are very much focused on improving and sustaining the well-being of children. And we know that if the child is well taken care of, while the child is still young, the child can grow to become a very successful person later in life. Therefore, investing in early childhood is very, very important, because that's from the future generation. Some of the innovation, and we have tried this as an organization, there is learning through play, the play-based pedagogy. This is a method that we have used, we have tested in some of the schools that we are supporting, whereby the teachers, and it's good, Daktari talked about the professional development of teachers, because that is the key. When teachers are well trained with the right pedagogies, with the right innovative approaches, they are able to impact the knowledge to the learners. So play-based learning method came as a result to address the gap that was there after COVID. It was a response to COVID, because most of the learners were at home, and some of them had dropped out of school, and therefore there was need to create a conducive environment at home, at school, sorry.
So therefore, the play-based methodology was an engaging method of teaching that was inclusive, that was encouraging learner to come to school. Leaving out now the traditional way of teaching. So what we have been doing as an organization, we have been training teachers on how to use the play-based method in class, especially during the language activities. Teachers are trained on how to plan for games and playful activities to incorporate during the language, when they are teaching the core skills in reading, when they are doing the phonomic awareness, when they are teaching about the alphabetical principles, when they are reading about comprehension, when they are doing vocabulary, they are able to integrate games and playful activities in class. And that is an innovative way whereby teachers are also trained to come up with materials, teaching and learning materials that will support the games and activities in class. Therefore, learners have enjoyed the method of that method of teaching. We have realized retention in most of the schools, and increased enrollment for learners, and we have also realized improved in reading abilities because learners have started enjoying the different activities in class. The other innovative approach that we have been able to do is blended learning, whereby we are the teachers are trained on how to integrate the ICT with the in learning and with other classroom activities. So the teachers have been taught on how to do, because in the CBC, one of the competencies is about digital literacy. Therefore, we have been doing this with the teachers, training them on how to integrate the ICT. They are able to use the devices in school, and also learners have been able to utilize some of these devices. And where we work, like I started earlier, we work with the most vulnerable communities. So we are in the most remote areas in Kenya. We have been able to support these learners who have been left out. Where we work, some of the places, they do not even have roads to access those places. But as an organization, we have been there. We have trained those teachers on how to use ICT in learning. We have also trained our teachers on another innovative method, the socio-emotional learning. The socio-emotional learning, it's a way whereby teachers are trained to help learners acquire skills and values. It's about the holistic development of these learners. They are able to acquire good life skills. The teachers are able to teach these learners how to acquire issues of self-awareness, self-management, relationship skills, and also responsible decision-making skills. So socio-emotional learning, it's also another pedagogy or an innovative approach that people need to adopt, so that once we train these learners while they are still young, they are able to acquire right skills and knowledge that they'll be able to apply in future. There is also another pedagogy that is very key, the universal design learning. This is about inclusivity, whereby all learners are included in the learning activities in the classroom, and the teacher is supposed to remove all barriers. Like, I like what was shared earlier in the morning about inclusive education. And as an organization, we are so much focused on this to ensure that those marginalized community, the most vulnerable children, are able to participate in all these activities. We have a component, a model that we use in World Vision. We call it JESI, Gender, Equity and Social Inclusion, whereby all our programming, all our activities must ensure that all these people are included. There is that aspect of inclusivity to ensure that they are able to understand how to support them, how to provide these resources. And like recently, we had an activity in one of the places that we are implementing our project, we did a lot of sensitization about disability awareness and also supporting learners with specific learning difficulties. And we realized that most of these children, they have been kept at home. Therefore, the sensitization and awareness creation was a way, because some of these community members, they think that mambo ya disability ni curse, so they keep their children at home, and therefore they are not able to come to school. But as a result of this sensitization, we were able to get so many of them that were referred and also assisted with the right services and also assistive devices, depending on their need. So those are some of the pedagogies that we can be able to incorporate. And as I conclude, we also did something that we are calling community-based learning, whereby the community is involved to support learning at the community level and also at home. So in this, we established like the community resource centers in the villages. We provided reading materials and other playful materials. And we also invited parents and community members to come and develop materials to support the community-based learning centers. They were able to provide that. And also we invited parents to come to the school to provide and develop resources. That is one of the innovations that we have realized, and it is supporting the CBC. One of the guiding principles in the CPC is the parental engagement and empowerment, which is very key because parents need to be brought on board to see how they can be able to support some of these innovations. The community-based learning center also provided an opportunity for the community service learning. Community service learning is also a component in the CBC, whereby learners are given an opportunity to participate in the community activities. For example, in class, you might be teaching about trees or part of a tree. But for these learners to understand how a tree looks like, the impact of a tree, you are supposed to engage them in a practical activity. So the community-based learning provide opportunities where learners can be able to participate in such activities like tree planting. Therefore, they are able to look at the parts of the plant and also understand how is this done. In the community service learning, they are also able to acquire entrepreneurial skills. They are also able to understand how things are done. They are able to evaluate and analyze information. And from their skills, they are able to support the community to ensure that we are also talking about education for sustainable development. So those are some of the innovations that we can be able to look at to ensure that our children are able to grow holistically in all aspects of growth and development, physically, socially, cognitively, intellectually, and also even in terms of their communication and collaboration skills. At the end of the day, we'll have a child who is engaged, empowered, and an ethical citizen. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, let's clap for Madam here. Thank you so much. I think this discussion needs a whole day when it comes for NGOs with quality education. Before I wind up, the following are the innovative strategies or innovative approaches that we can employ in our schools. She talked about learning through play. That's a pedagogical aspect. Then we have the inclusivity in education, which has been expounded very well in the other panel sessions. We have the teaching and training of teachers through trainings. Braided learning, that is the ICT integration in learning. We have the social-emotional learning. We have universal design learning and community-based learning. As you can see, this is a well-researched presentation, and we really appreciate with that. Now, members, the people, sorry, my audience. Thank you. My audience, we have learned a lot, I know you needed a lot of knowledge concerning how NGOs can promote quality of education, but because of time, you know, the people are still here, my panelists are still here. Before you go, you can give them a one-on-one discussion and ask whatever you want to ask in terms of quality of education. But at the moment, I am very much so, I know you had prepared much and more, but because of time, I will have to stop here. And you have been good audience, you have been good panelists, and personally, I would love to moderate again to such 4 experienced people. Mr. Daniel, thank you so much. So, so thank you so much, and I will take my mic to our host here so that he can congratulate us.
Thank you very much. Let's appreciate Hassan. You did well, my brother. You did well. If you could notice the paddle for inclusivity, it was moderated by a youth. And this one, so if he does it the second time, so let's appreciate Hassan. Manze, you did well. I like once they do, you do a recap, you're a good student. And for the panelists, it was a powerful team. Kwa Kijaluo tunasema powerful ndung'eny, yani you had. Seko, you did well. World Vision, you did well. All this, let's appreciate them once again. So I'll request you just come down. We take a group photo. The tradition always stands. Daniel, please come. Prof, you can join this particular team. Yes. If you have a question, just write it to me. I've already sent the evaluation on Kobolink, and we are going to act on them. So the team, you can just come. Yeah. I have to admit Wanjiro from Kesho, Kenya, World Vision, they have made this particular event a success. So thank you very much. Yeah. So we can just line up here. I think we need to balance symmetry. Okay, now it's balanced. Yes, so our professional camera photographers, it is your opportunity now.